Hey there everyone, it's Thakard and welcome back to a new video for Survival Fountain of Youth. Today I'm doing a tier list for the perks in game. Now you might be going, Thakard, didn't you do that already? And you are 100% correct. But that was before the tier 4 perks. And that was also 2 regions ago. So much has been added to the game. New regions, new survival tasks, new systems, entire systems have been added to the game that have changed the way that you look at perks completely. And also, the way that I have looked at the game has changed over time as well. So it is, well overdue for a update to the tier list for the perks. Now, this will probably not be the last time I do this either. Once those tier 5 perks come out, and, when the game finally reaches 1.0, I'll probably do another tier list to give my opinions then. But for now, we're going to take off and look at these, starting with the concentration line. Concentration 1. Unlocks the concentration mode, which defaults to the V key. This highlights special objects, weapons, ammos, and dropped bags when in concentration mode. Now, this is useful if you are a person that loses things very often, or if you are a person who dies very often. If you don't do any of those things, it becomes less useful. The biggest use for it is for finding your ammunition, so arrows that you've been shooting, or crossbow bolts. If you miss a target, you can easily highlight where it is, and also, if you hit a target, you can actually see that critter running away from you because you can see the little arrow moving across the screen. You can't actually see the animal, but you can see the arrow, and you can track your target that way. So I'm going to put this here in the B tier. Finding the bag, useful, but you also have an icon on the map, highlighting objects, that's useful too. So it kind of sits mid-range. Concentration 2. Highlights animal remains and allows you to see the tracks of animals. D tier. Why? Because if I killed an animal, I know where the animal is. And for some reason, if I have to, say, leave said animal, I can drop a marker on the map on it, and then I can easily just come back to it. So that isn't overly useful. You might go, but what about if you shoot an animal with an arrow or a bolt and it runs away out of your sight? You can't see it. Well, you can still see the arrow and the bolt from concentration 1. So it has limit of use, concentration 3, or 2 that is. Moving on to concentration 3. Highlights poisonous animals in concentration mode. Now this one has a big caveat to it. And that's because currently, as of reaping the harvest, snakes are bugged. Because currently, they can just pop into existence anywhere around you, which totally defeats the purpose of the concentration level 3 altogether. Because concentration level 3 allows you to see poisonous animals. So things like snakes and scorpions and bats and spiders. So this should, in theory, allow you to go, all right, I'm going into the jungle. I want to avoid the snakes. And you turn it on, you go, all right, snake there, and there. I can make a path through the jungle, get all the resources I have to get, and I'm not in any danger. However, the number of times in the dozens of hours that I've been playing recently where I will be harvesting a node, Say I'm in I'm harvesting liana vines, and I'm in the jungle on the Island of Hope. All right, I'm harvesting liana vines, and I harvest liana vines. All of a sudden, I look to my side, and like 3 feet from me, there's a snake. It's just appeared. Or on stream just the other day, you guys can look this up. I posted it. I had my cart, or not, I had my cart. I was coming back with resources. I am coming down a hill. There is nothing in front of me. Instantly, a snake pops up right in front of me, bites me. I get poisoning too. Okay? Until they fix these snakes spawning out of nowhere, the use of concentration 3 is limited at best. And since I am ranking these according to right now, we're going to put concentration 3 on the D tier. Once they fix these snakes spawning in, it's an A tier. You know what? I'll put it on the C tier. I won't go full D tier. We'll put it on the C tier. Because right now, it can almost be as much of a hindrance because you think there are no snakes around because I've scanned and there's nothing here, and you let down your guard and you start walking, boom, you get bit out of nowhere. And so this perk point is actually causing more harm than good right now because of a bug. Anyways, went off on a tangent there, related, not a tangent, but concentration 4 increases the concentration mode, doubles it, going down in the D tier. Why? Because most of the stuff that you're hunting something, usually it's not going to leave the range. Even if it does, you can follow the little footsteps and you can find, oh, there's my crossbow bolt running across the horizon again. I can go track it that way. Doubling the range doesn't really matter. Considering the problem with snakes being bugged right now, why does it matter if I can see snakes that supposedly are all in the world right now twice a range when it won't show a snake that is 2 feet in front of me? Okay? So until they fix the snakes, the concentration, the entire tree of concentration is just not nearly worth it as much. All right, now that we've gotten past Rant City, let's move into Resist Disease. Resist Disease 1 reduces the risk of getting a disease due to weather factors by 30%. So this is like if it's raining, if it's windy. My assumption is if it's cold and if it's hot, also fall under this category as well. We are 30% less likely to get a disease. All right, quite nice, cool. I can safely sit here in the middle. Gives us a little bit of a bonus to not getting sick. Wonderful, I like it. Rank 2 of Resist Disease. Natural recovery heals of all types of flu 50% better. C tier. Why C tier? You go 50% is a lot. It's because the likelihood of me getting the flu is not very high. You can control things like, well, tier 1 here, gives us 30% less chance that we're going to get the flu from rain and wind. Or we can wear any of the armors that block rain, any of the armors that block wind, any of the, we can build a canopy over our bed and our workspaces, or, put them inside of a house, which takes care of both those. The only time you're going to be getting sick generally with the flu is if you're wandering through the mountains and it's raining. And then you can just pop a potion or medicine, It's not that great. However, getting into tier 3 of Resist Disease, this is different altogether. This is because Resist Disease rank 3 is natural recovery heals all types of wounds 50% better. A tier. A tier 100%. Why? Because while getting the flu happens very rarely. Getting wounded happens literally all the freaking time. An animal scratches you, wound. You are crafting something and you fail the craft, wound. You are picking stuff off of a tree with your axe. You screw up the crafting, or you screw up the gathering roll, wound. You back up into a thorny bush, wound. You walk down the staircase in your own house, and the game for some reason thinks that you just flung yourself off the top of a cliff. You take damage and wound. You're always going to be wounded. So a 50% bonus to healing those wounds, absolutely wonderful. Also, devs, fix the issue where if I go down a freaking staircase, I get wounded. I have never gone down a staircase and gotten wounded. And I've tripped and fallen down a 2-flight set of stairs. I hopped back up and I walked away. Okay? Jeez. You don't get wounded for falling 3 feet, going over a rock, getting tossed up in the air by 2 feet. You don't get wounded. Change the distance you have to fall to get wounded and damaged. Okay. Rant 2 is over. Next up. Resist disease, rank 4. Natural recovery heals all types of indigestion 50% better. B tier. Why? Because you will get indigestion much less often as you will get wounded, but you'll get it more often than you will get the flu. And this can be countered quite a bit by leveling up your skills for cooking and leveling up your skills for drying. It can or reading books as well. There's a book that basically says if you can't get indigestion off of dried food. Well, that kind of solves a lot of issues, So as long as you are cooking your food and not eating it raw, this falls off a little more because you're not going to have indigestion. All right, next up we have our resist poisons, and this is rank 1. Reduces chances of getting indigestion from bad food by 30%. Now, with all that I said, just for the last one about, the likelihood of getting it isn't high, yada, 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 yada. This is A tier. Why? Because it's tier 1. It's 1 skill point. I can get it early in the game, relatively early. And this is when I'm actually getting sick from food. So if I can get the likelihood of me getting sick is 30% less. Yes, wonderful. I like it. All right, resist poisons 2. Reduces chance of poisoning from insects bites by 30%. The only time I get bit by insects is if I'm in a jungle and I'm harvesting something. And technically, I could use the algae potion medicine to not have to worry about that either. So this just doesn't have much of a use, in my opinion. First of all, you have to get a spider or a scorpion on you, and you can avoid that by, concentration mode. Oh, they're over there, they're over there. Just don't go by them. Or just have a torch and they will run away from you, And if you are going to be in the deep jungle, grab some algae, make the potion. Don't ever have to worry about it. Now, do I often make the potion? No, just because the likelihood of you getting bit while you're out there harvesting resources isn't actually that bad. And then the likelihood of you getting poisoned from it isn't that bad to begin with either. So it's just the likelihood overall of it happening just makes it not that worthwhile. All right, tier 3 of resist poison. Reduces a chance of poisoning from snake bites by 30%. And this one's down here too. Even though snakes are popping into existence right in front of you, if it happens, it's going to happen. And it's annoying. And it's, as someone who has a fear of snakes, it literally puts my heart into palpitations. But the likelihood of you getting poisoned still isn't that great. You know, if you do get poisoned, it's generally a poison too, and so you're going to have to treat it, which is quite annoying. But that's more because snakes are broken right now. And it's if these two were say like 50%, then maybe they would come up a little bit, but they're not, so they won't. All right, resist poison 4. Reduces poisoning and food poisoning damage by 50%. This one will sit in the B tier. Why? And it's not for the food poisoning. By the time you get this one, you probably already have the skills to not get food poison from, eating dried food. And it's a lot less from, eating all different types of food, as long as, once again, you're not eating raw food. That being said, this one, I kind of changed my mind today on this because during my stream today, I was on the foggy island and I was fighting off a bat, and the bat, I missed twice, and I killed the bats, but they were able to hit me. And bats are really hard to block and stab. They're kind of funky like that. And so the likelihood of you getting poisoned by a bat is actually pretty damn high. Now, poison 1 doesn't really do that much. The second level of poisoning 2 really starts to have an effect because poisoning affects your hunger, and it's how much your food over time is used. And like from tier 2 on, it just nukes your food. Your food will disappear like it's water in a drain and someone pulled the frickin' plug, man. And it just gets worse. So this lessening that issue, I wish I'd had it on me today because, I mean, I had to run back to my boat and get some more food because, it was not a sustainable thing. I actually wound up using a water of life to actually heal everything. And yeah, it's that one's actually useful primarily because of bats. All right. Next up, we are moving into thirst control. This is rank 1, tier 1. Eating water containing food gives +5 water bonus. S tier. The first of our S tiers. Now, the S tier for me can pretty much be summed down to, can I get something for free in a limited resource? If I can get a limited resource for free from the game, S tier. This means if we eat something that has any food that has just 1 water in it, something with 1 water in it is going to get +5 water bonus. So it's really good for things that have less water than more water in them because the ratio is much higher. But if I have a food that has, 10 food, 1 water, all of a sudden it's 10 food, 6 water. That's huge, okay? So it's much less effective for like the soups later on, obviously. But for the early foods and the early hydration issues that you have, it is just absolutely wonderful. And it's 1 point. It's 1 point. It will save your butt so much in the beginning of the game, especially on the harder difficulties. Tier 2 of thirst control. Clean water hydrates 25% more. S tier. So I'm drinking water from my canteen or my flask. Doesn't matter where I got the water. Did I get the water from my rain collector? Doesn't matter. Did I get it from one of my distillers? Doesn't matter. Every sip I take is 25% more effective. 25% more water out of nowhere. Thirst control 3 increases upper limit of hydration by 10%. C tier. D tier. D tier. This takes us from being able to go to 100 water on our person to 110 water. That 10 really doesn't matter that much. And by the time you have the points to get it, you're either wanting to put the points into other things, or you already have sources of water, of hydration, and food that are going to be giving you quite a bit more. Its biggest benefit actually comes from sleeping, because when you sleep and you have your hydration and your food levels above a certain level, so for very hard, you have to have them at 85 or higher. This is effective for that because it gives you, instead of having this 15-point buffer, which you can heal in, you now have a 25-point buffer that you can heal in. That is actually quite nice. But there are other ways to deal with that. Like, making a healing potion. And things like eucalyptus potions are just so easy to make now that it's become less effective. Thirst control 4. Clean water restores 1 energy. Comes so late. It comes so late in the game that you're spending points for. You can use that many points. I mean, it costs what, 4 points? It's just, it doesn't give you enough. All right, so I drink water, I gain energy. Well, if I need energy, 1, I can drink coffee. And you can get coffee in the first region. 2, I can drink a berry compote. And you can get berry compote in the first region. Or 3, I can just sleep in a better bed. By the time you're getting up to the tier 4 of thirst control here, you probably have the ability to, you're either making, the TP or the good sleeping bag, or the middle sleeping bag, the sleeping bag, or you probably even have access to the best bed in the game, which is the bed with a mattress. In which case, you can sleep all the way up to full in 3 hours. And it just doesn't matter anymore. So, not that effective. Probably needs a change. Definitely needs a change. All right. Hunger control rank 1. Eating nutritious food gives you +5 food bonus. Once again, it's giving us a limited resource. And it's giving us more of it. Early on, it's super, super helpful. It falls off later on in the game that you go, just because you're going to have more food access, but it doesn't fall off as much as it used to. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit more when I'm talking about hunger control. I think it's rank 3. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But first off, we have hunger control 2. And this slows down starvation process while we're sleeping by 20%. It's useful in the beginning, but 20% isn't very big, I just can't get excited by it. It's going to sit down and see. I just can't get excited by it. All right, moving down to tier 3 of hunger control. Increases the upper limit for satiety by 10%. This goes back to that I was saying I would talk about tier 1 a little bit more. This is going to be a B tier. Now, this is basically the same as the tier 4 thirst control, where it increases our level to 110 from 100. And you might go, well, why does that make, why is it so much higher? And it's basically because of farming. There are a lot of really good foods later on in the game that you can get a lot of food out of, different meals that you can prepare. And sometimes you're wasting some of that resource. You will overfeed yourself to where it's like, oh, this gives you like 50 food, but you only need like 40 food at the time. So this allows you to go a little bit higher. Plus, along with this here, having more food and being able to store that food on you also means that I don't have to eat as often, which means I can take the food that I would have to eat and I can now use that and turn that into rotten food and then fertilizer to grow things I might actually want out of my gardens and farms. So being able to get more out of your food with a tier 1 and having a higher limit to it with a tier 3. Between those two, I can actually take more of the extra food. Maybe it's extra meat that I've gotten while I've been hunting, or it's extra fruit that I've picked from trees. And I can take more of that and turn that into fertilizer and grow, things like vines, which I always need. So for that reason alone, it's going to sit up here in the B tier instead of all the way down the D tier, just because of the farming and actually needing to use food to make fertilizer now. All right, up next. This also goes into play the same way, and that's why it's going to be tier 5, and that is hunger control rank 4. Eating nutritious food satisfies hunger plus 10 more. Once again, it's giving me a bonus. The reason why I'm not doing it all the way up in the S tier is just because it's so much later. It has less effect on the beginning of the game, but as I was talking about these 3 here just before, this has a big impact when it comes to farming. This is plus 5, this is plus 10. So from each thing, I'm getting plus 15 extra food. I can stack it a little bit higher, which means when I'm eating food that has lost a lot of hunger or fills you up a lot more, 15, I can stack it just a little bit higher, which means I can then use the extra food, turn into fertilizer, grow useful items. So these actually have become much more useful than the last time when I was talking them, specifically because of the farming system, because there is now another use for all that food. All right. Next up, we will be talking about Better Sleep Rank 1. Increases energy recovery rate while sleeping by 10%. S tier. You might go, 10% isn't that much. What's the deal? All right, here it is. 1, it's a rank 1. So it costs 1 skill point. Not that big of an investment. And it gives you 10% better energy when sleeping, which means I sleep 10% less, which means I am out there harvesting and gathering resources 10% more. I am building my base 10% more. I'm building my items 10% more. I'm building my raft 10% more. I'm exploring islands 10% more. It is giving you time, free time in game to do stuff for 1 skill point. It's right up at the top. All right. Next up is Better Sleep number 2. Increases chance of recovering from all diseases in sleep by 20%. A tier. So let's say, for example, I get indigestion from a meal I had at some point before I go to sleep. So I have an upset stomach. That kind of sucks. I can either treat it with a medicine, chamomile, but then I have to replace that medicine, which means I have to do the cooking of the medicine plus the lighting of the fire itself, which takes time. And once again, time is money in this game. So if I can sleep it off instead, so much the better. Now, 20% isn't huge. 20% isn't huge. No, I'm going to put it down to B tier just because 20% isn't that huge. If it was like 30, 40%, I'd put it back up in the A tier. But we're going to move it down to the B tier just because 20% isn't that big. But what I'll generally do is if I get a wound or the flu or indigestion, anything like that, instead of treating it before I go to sleep, I will sleep. And if I can't get rid of it while I sleep, I'll then treat it in the morning. If I can get rid of it while I sleep, gravy, I've basically I've made a free potion because I don't have to replace the potion that I would have used. All right. Better Sleep number 3. All diseases except fever don't block healthy sleep. That is S tier. Now you might go, but Thakard, this isn't giving you anything for free. Au contraire, this is giving you health for free. Because when I sleep, generally, like I said, if you have your food and your water over 85%, 85 when you're in very hard, scaling down for all the other difficulties. When you have your hydration and your food levels above that point, you will heal while you sleep, except if you are wounded or you have an illness. Then you're not going to heal. This allows you to heal through those as long as they aren't the really bad fever that you can get, but you only get fever at like tier 4 of the wounds or the sicknesses. And even then, it's a chance. So it's very good because it gives you health for free while you sleep. It's a good one. Get it. Tier 4, better sleep. All right. Increases healthy sleep effect by 20%. A tier. It makes the effect of, our healthy sleeping, the bonuses that we get from it, much more effective. 20% isn't much, like I said, but as the game goes on, you can sleep so much more often. So if we get the mattress or the bed with a mattress, I can go from no energy to full energy in basically 3 hours. It's just shy of full energy. So that means I can get my bonuses from being well rested in 3 hours, which is huge. And that bonus for being well rested, that will just kind of accelerate us through everything else. So yes, A tier. It is the first of the tier 4. This one was up here as well. So second tier 4 that actually has gotten up to A tier. Pretty good. Up next, we're moving into the learning skills, starting with the rank 1 of learning. This one gives us 10% earned skill points bonus. S tier. Skills are just super advantageous. Be it, we'll look at like mapping, for example, there's one of the things in there where it's like I can have a chance to double the area that I map. So instead of mapping out 50 in range, I can get 100 in range, right? But it's a percentage base. But that percentage goes up every single time I boost that skill. And you have these different buffs to your skills through everything. And is it 14? I can't remember the number of skills offhand. You have lots and lots of skills. So boosting that and getting 10% of that XP faster pays off a lot in the end. It's really nice. It's a good one. Must get. Next one up. Tier 2 of learning. Every 5th completed survival task gives 1 perk point. Useful, not S tier. Mainly because of the next word, or the next couple words I'm going to say. Not retroactive. Now last time we did this video, it was D tier. And that was because the number of survival tasks in the game was like 7. So at best you could get 1 skill point. Now there are a lot more survival tasks in the game. So this is much more valuable because you can get many more perk points for this one perk that you learn. That being said, it's not retroactive. So you have to get this early on. In fact, I think this is your number 2. I think most times when you're going to be leveling, or when you're doing your perks here, perk 1 will be learning 1, perk 2 will be learning 2. Because when it says not retroactive, it does not mean, all right, I have 5 skill survival tasks that I've done. I grab learning 2, I do my 5th survival task, boom, I get a point. No. It doesn't start counting your survival tasks until you have it. So you want to get learning 2 before you do any of your survival tasks to get the full effect out of it. For that reason alone, it's not going to be S tier, it's going to be an A tier. Next up, Learning number 3 gives a 50% bonus to book reading speeds. This is going to be B tier. Now, this one, I like and I dislike. I don't really dislike it. But the only thing that kind of keeps it down is the fact that there aren't a lot of books in the game. I mean, there are, but once you read the books, that's it. You know, there's nothing else. Now, if they bring in more bonuses to the skills, so more books, this will become more advantageous. What makes it a good perk is that it's cutting down the reading speed by 50%. So instead of reading a book for 12 hours, you're reading it for 6 hours. So this perk gives you 6 hours every single time you read a book. And like I said, time is money in this game. So having more time to do other things is so much better. So it probably deserves to be up here in A. The reason why it's down in B is the fact that eventually it's completely useless because there are no more books to read. So it has no point whatsoever. All right, learning 4 rewards 1 perk point at skill level 6, not retroactive. S tier. You have a lot of skills, and you can get that many perk points for free just by doing some simple pre-planning. Now, this one only cares about when you hit that 6th point in your skill. So you don't have to start spending points on it right away. You basically just kind of have to monitor how quickly you're getting your skills. And like by the time you start getting into the 5 range on your skills, you go, all right, I'm going to save up the points I need for this, 4 perk points, and I'm going to spend it. You just have to spend it before you get up to level 6 in any of your skills. So it's a fairly easy one to look after, and it has a very high benefit by just doing a little bit of pre-planning. Now, there are a lot of people who are complaining about it right now because, oh, I've been playing the early access from the beginning, so I don't get any benefit from it. I understand you're upset that you don't get benefits from this skill or from this perk, but the developers are not designing the game for a person who is already halfway through it. They're designing a full game for a person who's starting from the beginning, because you balance things from the beginning to the end of a game, not from the halfway point to the end of the game. So I understand some people are upset about it. There are people going, you need to change this on the forum. No, you don't. Next time you start over, which you will at some point, you're going to be like, wow, this is a really nice perk point. And it is. One of the best. All right. Up next, we have the absolute losers of the entire tier list. Last time, alchemistry was worthless. Why? Because you had to use a water of life to make any of the potions. And why use water of life to make any of the potions when I can just read the medicine book, which means the water of life now not only heals me to full and gets rid of my red death debuff, but also treats whatever illnesses I have. Water of life is an insanely limited resource, you know? So why would I ever use it on a potion? The only good potion was Alchemy rank 1, the Buffalo potion. And that's because it is a full heal with disease treatment. Very useful. However, was it worth making out of a water of life? No. You gathered the ones that were randomly out in the world. You use those when you need to, sparingly. You never made anything new. Now it is all changed. Why? Because now these alchemical potions no longer take water of life. They take moonshine as a base for them, which means that they are actually useful. How actually useful? S tier useful. That's how actually useful. Now, I can't get this and start making it until I get to the Buffalo zone or the Buffalo region because I need bits and pieces to make it from the Buffalo region. However, once I use it, it's a full heal with all disease treatment. It's amazing. And it takes freaking moonshine. It's easy to make. It's probably overpowered right now. It might be for a single object in the game, it is probably the most overpowered object in the entire game currently. I don't think it needs to be changed though. And if anything, maybe make it only treat so many disease levels. Maybe limit it a little bit more that way. But keep it as a full heal. It's wonderful. It's definitely S tier now. It went from bottom of the list to the top of the list because they made one change, switching it from Water of Life to Moonshine. Great change. Amazing change. All right, tier 2 of Alchemistry unlocks the Snake Potion. Snake Potion, it's good. It's not Buffalo Potion. The Snake Potion stops the loss of my survival stats. So my food, my hydration, my energy. It's very useful very early in the game where you might be low on food, you might be low on water, or if you want to like really work through that evening, you don't have access to coffee or anything like that yet. There it's very useful. It falls off in usefulness the more the game goes because you have better beds. If you can sleep to full in 3 hours, it just loses its luster. If you have better sources of food and hydration, it just loses its luster. So it is much less useful as time goes on. All right. Alchemistry level 3 unlocks the Puma Potion. Now, the Puma Potion gives you unlimited stamina for 12 hours, which means it's very good for exploring areas, running around. But that's kind of it. It's 12 hours, it's running around. It didn't really give you much of a benefit for what I thought it should do, which is increasing the amount of like weight capacity. Last time we had this talk, this type of video, I said if they change this to where it gives you unlimited carrying capacity for 12 hours, all of a sudden it's an S tier ish. But it doesn't. It gives you unlimited stamina, which just isn't as great. However, hold the phone. We have a new potion. We have the Diligence Potion, which increases the amount of weight that you can carry. In combination with the Puma Potion, all of a sudden, you have something really, really nice. So no longer do you need to carry a cart all the way into the frickin' center of the volcano on the Iron Island to go get more iron. You can now just run in there, mine your iron, potion, go. With the inclusion of the Diligence Potion, the Puma Potion itself has now become better. It's interesting how these things can change over the inclusion of a new item or a changing of an item. Kind of nice. Last up, Alchemistry rank 4 unlocks the Bird Potion recipe. Well, so far the Alchemistry category has really benefited from the changes that have happened. Until now. And it's because the Bird Potion is worthless. It's just, it allows you to see creatures, critters through objects. Most critters are outside, and if I have concentration, I can see things like spiders and everything else, no matter where they are. The only benefit this would ever have is like seeing, like on the Windy Island, you have jackals and you have pumas, or you have jackals and jaguars inside. But it's not like you don't know they're there because they make noise. So the bird potion is absolutely worthless. It is by far the worst potion, has no purpose in the game. There's literally one you can pick up by the observation point on the Island of Hope. I used it to see what it could do, and I've never used it in any of my playthroughs ever again because it is pointless. Developers, you must change this to do something better. Maybe give you a bonus to hunting, you know? Maybe you can do more damage to animals when you use it, or you can see like a health bar on animals, something. Because right now it is absolutely worthless. It's just dead code in the game. Okay, it needs something. It needs a complete rework, completely. All right, so that is all of the perks currently in game, and I've ranked them according to my thoughts on them. Please tell me your thoughts down below. Do you agree with my ranking? Do you think that Thirst Control 1 and 2, Hunger Control 1, Better Sleeping 1 and 3, Learning 1 and 4, and Alchemistry 1, are those all S tiers on your list? Do you agree with these guys here on the bottom? Would you make changes? Please tell me down below how you would rearrange this. I want to know what you guys think about all these perks and how you rearrange this entire system, okay? If you have any ideas about what you would like me to do in future content for Survival Fountain of Youth, please leave that down below as well. Thank you very much, guys. Very much appreciate. This was something that someone requested that I do again, and so I have. Once again, like I said, leave stuff down below if you want me to do something else. This is an example of something that was done because of someone's suggestion. All right, everyone, you go out there, arrange your perks, reap the benefits from them, and have yourself a wonderful day and week. Goodbye.